It's your host, Claire. We're back with another Midnight Review podcast episode where I sit and I yap at midnight about what I thought worked, what I didn't think worked, and everything else I think you need to know about the show that I just saw. Tonight, I got to see Redwood, a new musical, which is currently playing at the Nederlander Theater. And it stars Idina Menzel, Zachary Noah Pizer, DeAndre Aziza, Michael Park, and Kayla Wilcoxon. That is who I saw. There were no standbys in today. Redwood is about 110 minutes is what it says, which is true. A little less than 2 hours. It follows this woman named Jessie who has just gone through a deep loss in the last year, and she goes to the Redwood forest, kind of unexpectedly, not planned, and finds a love for these huge, wonderful, gorgeous trees. And that is kind of her way of closure with this loss that she has had. I think this story is a beautiful story. I am not sure I loved the way that it was presented, but the storyline of loss and connectivity and community, I really, really liked, especially for right now. So one of the things they taught, you learn a lot about redwood trees. I learned some things that I never knew before. One of them being that these trees can get up to 300 feet tall, taller than the Statue of Liberty. And if you have ever been to the Statue of Liberty, I mean, on the boat when you're getting there, you're like, yeah, she's big. It's big. It looks like any other building that I get, near in New York City. If you've ever stood at the base of the Statue of Liberty, it's insane. It's huge. So I've never been to the Redwood Forest. I can't even imagine standing between so many of these trees that are just that tall. I'm only 5'1", okay? These things are, they're a monstrosity to anyone, but they are huge for me. So what they've done with the set, which I think is actually really cool, is they've created their own redwood tree, but it's only the smallest. If you think about it, 300 feet, right? The stage is however tall a normal stage is, and it runs the entire height of the stage plus a little bit, but that's only a fraction of what an actual redwood tree what their height is. And Michael Park and Kayla Wilcoxon, they are climbing these trees, this singular tree, and I mean in a harness, ropes, doing it all themselves. So huge applause to them. Idina also does it. She doesn't go all the way up. The Kayla and Michael both go past the height of the proscenium art. So they get all the way up there, and I was in the orchestra, so I was actually able to kind of see where their landing was that they get off on. And it's still a few feet above where the proscenium ends. So they're doing a lot of work. On top of that, they are singing. There is dancing. There's actual choreography to the show. It's very minimal, and it's on the tree. They're all hooked in, Idina included. It's choreographed by Jennifer Weber, and there is a scene where it's Idina and Michael and Kayla just kind of swinging, free swinging. Honestly, it was really, really cool to watch. I really enjoyed it. Now, in the show, there is a landing. There's a platform that comes down pretty often throughout the show. And it's essentially representing these platforms. They're probably about this, I would assume that they are the size of the platform that actually comes down, of where people who are doing science on these redwood trees, who are camping and are trying to preserve these trees, activists, etc. This is where they sleep. They sleep in the trees, right? If you go camping and you've seen pictures of people with their hammocks and they're hanging between the trees and they're hundreds of feet in the air. That's what they're doing. So there are sections of the show where they are on this platform. It's very cool to see. It's very cool to watch. If you are in the orchestra, mind you, you will be looking up. And I do think because a lot of the show does take place on this landing where Jessie, Adina's character, is kind of camping. I think she's probably up there for a little less than half the show, but it's for a good portion of the show. So just mind you, probably actually some of the better seats are up in the mezzanine. They're not as cheap. I mean, they're not as expensive. They're still expensive up there, but you actually might get a better view up there just because you'll be eye level with Adina for most of the show. Adina or Jessica Phillips, whoever you happen to get, they're both phenomenal. The show has such heart to it. It does go in and out of present time and memories. And it's very clear when we see Jessie kind of have these fits of guilt and doubt and these memories that pop up. I do know that the one thing that they want you to take from this show is the idea of community. So you learn a lot about these redwoods throughout the show. As I've said, they give you a lot of facts, which I think are super interesting. Actually, these trees are so cool to me. And if you've heard some interviews that Adina has done, she's actually a certified climber now for these trees. Apparently she went all the way. She didn't go all the way up, but she went up quite high. And she serenaded her person who was up there certifying her and stuff. So she's climbed these trees, lots of method acting going on. It's something dear to her heart, the preservation of these beautiful trees. But something that you learn, that if you didn't already know, you do learn this in the show, that these trees, as I said, are very tall. But their root system only goes 5 to 6 feet into the ground. So, you know, you would think that their roots would go so deep, and they don't. And what they do actually is they kind of grab on to each other and they hold each other up, and they keep all these trees keep each other sturdy. And so one of the big things that they want you to take away from the show, which really I did, is that the community around you is what's going to help you get through things, right? You think you can do it alone, and you want to push it down, you want to hide it, you don't want to talk about it, and it's as hard as it can be. I've always personally felt that it's easier to go through things with friends and family and or whoever it doesn't have to be blood family. It can be your chosen family, your chosen friends, people who are closest to you, but that can also mean your neighbor that you've never met before, and sometimes you just need to ask for some sugar and offer them a piece of pie. I don't know. But that's their big takeaway. That's what they want you to take away, and I truly did from this story. Kayla Wilcoxon was a huge standout role for me. She sang down, you guys. Every character kind of had their own like vibe of song, own little genre of song. Adina's character that her music really, really felt like the music that she produces herself, the music that she writes. So Queen of Swords, that album, that's really what her song's music sounded like. Michael and DeAndre's characters, they felt a little more contemporary musical theater, in my opinion, of that sound. It's not as pop sounding. Kayla had some soul. I mean, she has soul in her voice. I saw her in Six and blown away. She is phenomenal. And so some of her songs are a little jazzy. They have a little bit of jazz blues kind of going on in there. Zachary has one song in the end, and it was definitely a tearjerker for a lot of people around me. I don't want to give everything away. I'm giving away the facts that you can look up online about Redwoods, but I don't want to give away the storyline if you do go and see the show. I think what they have done is very cool. I love the Redwood. Oh, the other thing that I think I should point out, if you are someone, so the screens, they have these projection screens, which seem to be a very big thing for Broadway right now. They're everywhere. And The way that they did the screens for this show, they go all the way around the whole theater, all the way up to the mezzanine. So it's basically wrapping around the front of the stage into the mezzanine. It's very cool. You are supposed to feel like you are encapsulated in these trees. The one thing I will say, if you are someone who is not big on going to like the astronomy sphere things, where you sit down and you look up and the seats kind of lay back and they show you where all the stars are, and sometimes they play random movies and stuff, if you've ever been to those museums or whatever, like the Sphere in Las Vegas, if you've seen, things like that. So the best, I'm backtracking, but it'll make sense when I finish my thing. The best way I can describe it is pause, going back again. There is a section of the show where we watch Jessie enter the forest for the first time, and we are basically watching her walk through the forest. There is no turntable. There's nothing like in Hamilton or Hadestown where there's just something turning and the person isn't moving, but they are walking clearly, but they're not. She walks directly upstage. And while she's walking and turning and looking up at the sky and then laying down, the screens are showing us basically what she is seeing. So we feel as though we are also walking with her and looking up at the stars and spinning and sitting down. Do you see where I'm going with this? Because it's in your peripheral, I think it feels like when you are in a parked car. You're going to know what I'm talking about. When you're in a parked car and the parked car next to you starts to back up. But for a hot second, because you're not really paying attention, for a hot second, you actually think your car is moving and you're like, oh no, how did my car get out of park and like turn the ignition on and everything? Like that's what it feels like, but just make that for like 30 seconds. It was a little disorienting for me personally. It didn't seem super disorienting for everyone, but I personally had to I had to look at Adina's feet, actually. I had to not look. I had to make it so I couldn't really see the screens as well because it made me a little dizzy. I won't lie. It did. But it's a really, really cool concept, and I like what they did with it. I will say there's a flash warning, I would say, because there are moments where we go in and out of the present and the past, and moments where Jessie is just kind of going through it, and there's a lot of flashing going on. I enjoyed some of the lines. They really made Jessie like a secondary version of Adina. We have a lot of things that I have personally heard her say and talk about in interviews. One of the things being from Long Island and the way they talk, and how after a few drinks, her accent comes out, and then she's explaining bumpata to Michael Park's character, and I find that really cute. There's a nod to some other things in her career in the show, and I thought they were cute. I think one of the things I didn't love is that there were moments where we would get really deep. We would get into this moment of like you had to sit with something heavy, and a joke was put in, or a line that was kind of funny to lighten up the mood was put in, and I felt that it came just a smidge too early. I think that's one of the few things that I had an issue with, is that there were a couple times actually where I just felt we could sit in it a little longer and we didn't get to because a joke was made or something. And that's just me. I love an angsty book. I love an angsty thing. I don't know why. We all like our things, right? I think I just wanted to sit in some of that emotion for a little bit more before we got the joke to lighten it up a little bit. That was one of my things. I'm excited that Adina is back on Broadway. I have been a fan of hers for years. I was introduced to her as Maureen in Rent when I was like 7. I don't know why I was watching Rent at 7, but I was, and I loved it. And I've followed her career ever since. I would be interested in seeing Jessica Phillips in the role. Just to see how she plays the role. Adina goes deep. I mean, there were some things that I was a little not too into, and there were other things where I did like it. um like acting wise. The show is good. It's not a show that I think everyone is going to like. I have already seen some responses to the show. It's kind of a mixed bag. I think something that I would hope that everyone takes away from this is what they are trying, the agenda. That's not really the word that I want to use, but like what they want you to take away from this about community and that kind of thing, along with how Jessie finds her closure in this loss. I think what they did with that is great, and that is the one thing that I think I will really be taking from it is these trees are huge and their root system is so not huge comparatively to the height of these trees, but they've been around for a really long time, and it seems like they know what they're doing. It seems like they know how to survive. So, if anything, that's what I take from this show. I don't know if I'll see it again, but I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I can have an opinion on it. It kind of makes me want to go visit the redwoods, and climb one. Like that looked really fun. It's a lot of work, but I think it would be really fun. It looks cool. It looks fun. As always, you can find me at claire.mcconnell, or you can find at the Broadway Vlogs. Make sure you check to see if you're following the Broadway Vlogs. We did make a new account, so you probably thought you were, but because we made a new account, it's the same username, but because it's new, you're probably not following it. So if you would like to be following it and getting updates about all of our interviews and these midnight reviews, throw in the follow. Check it out. And DM me. Let me know if you DM me on the Broadway Vlogs, and let me know if you see Redwood, if you saw it, what your thoughts were. Let's chit chat. I love to yap about shows that I've seen. And yeah, that is all I have. That's all I got. All right, bye.